I don't breathe when I'm taking pictures with people. So the more and more things like that happen, people started realizing maybe these guys are just full of shit. And then you sit there and you wonder, what is really going on behind closed doors?
Patrick Bet-David brought on a doctor onto his show. That's not necessarily an extremely woke doctor, but he did have a pretty woke take, and Patrick Bet-David was not going to allow him to get away with it. Let's get into this clip here where PBD on the PBD podcast here absolutely annihilates this ridiculous take here from this Dr. Peter McCullough.
We brought a lot of people on, but the challenge becomes the ability for yesterday, Trump was on this podcast, Full Send, Nelk Boys, right? And the video, Trump says, don't worry, this thing's not going to stay on for too long. And next thing you know, less than 24 hours, gets 5-6 million views and it's taken down. And, he gets on Hannity to say this thing was taken out. But I told him it's going to be taken out because Dana White wanted him to do this podcast. So censorship, what I learned from the outside, here's what I've learned as the non-expert. I learned that the most powerful organization here when it comes down to handling pandemic, for me to be able to seek the truth, is the one that's putting the muzzle on the average day-to-day person that eventually says, I'm not going to post anything. Why do we not have your video today on YouTube? Why is this not being posted on YouTube? Why is this only being posted on Spotify and Apple and Stitch and all the other? Why not? Because we know the folks at Google are not going to let this thing stay for another 24 hours. It'll be taken down. We'll get a strike. Then we can't do any podcasts, and we're shutting down for doing podcasts for a week. And then we may get a second strike. Then we're shutting down for 3 months. Then we don't have a product to produce. So the policies by these major social networks, virtual governments, played a very big role where a lot of average people, like Adam is talking about, felt they were muzzled. So that I realized they have the power. Number two, I don't think a person needs to have as much power as they did to control and intimidate the average day-to-day person to dictate what kids should wear in school as a mask or take a vaccine like a Fauci does. I think giving too much power to one person is very scary when it comes down to something like this. A president, I get it. There's got to be a shot caller. Someone's got to make the decision because we have Congress, Senate, we have a system, judicial system, legislative. We have a system that works. Even a Joe Manchin, his vote mattered so much that the left was upset. Our system, for the most part, works. It's a decent system that we have. But Fauci had a little too much of a monopoly, and everybody had to look at him as the main. At first, if you think about when the pandemic first got started, it wasn't just Fauci. It was a group of people that we heard. It was Birx. It was him. It was a handful of other people. It wasn't just Fauci. Gradually, he one by one got rid of everybody else, whether he did or another way of getting away from it. And all of a sudden, he's the guy. He's the voice. He's the one that we have to listen to. And the hypocrisy started coming out. So the average day person sitting there saying, Newsom is saying, you got to wear a mask. And the next he's at French Laundry not wearing a mask. Mayor Villagrosa saying, you got to wear a mask. And then he's seen at a game not wearing a mask. And he says, oh, I don't breathe when I'm taking pictures with people. So the more and more things like that happen, people started realizing maybe these guys are just full of shit. And then you sit there and you wonder, what is really going on behind closed doors? I was watching Kennedy's documentary yesterday. I've interviewed a lot of guys on Kennedy, whether it's one of the Secret Service agent, Bolden, who was the first African-American Secret Service agent, whether it's Jim Jenkins, who was one of the 4 guys that held his brain 30 minutes after he died. And Oliver Stone does his documentary on John F. Kennedy, and you're sitting there, 1963, what's today? 2022, how many years is that? 60 years, nearly 59 years later, and we have an idea what went on. But for 75 years, we can really do investigation to dig into the numbers and the charts. And even his own doctor, who had been his own doctor for years, when interviewed in 1967 at the library, was asked, hey, do you still agree with the 3 shots that was, taken and what people are saying with the Warren report? And he says, I have no interest in commenting on that. What do you mean?
Yeah, Patrick Bet-David's cooking right now, man. Like, there's no way you can disagree. And this is why nobody trusts the government anymore. This is why the default setting for anyone who has common sense in their brain, anyone who's not an agent of the government, which is basically the entire woke left, is they hear what the government official story is and no one ever believes it. Because why the hell would you believe it? Every single thing that they say to us is a lie. Every single thing. Like, you would think that they would sometimes throw a truth here and there in there just to, keep us honest. But like, they don't do that. They just lie every single time about things way in the past, like the JFK stuff. or things in the present, like the 2020, the lockdowns and everything that's going on at that time, the stuff with Fauci, the stuff with Hunter Biden, the stuff with Joe Biden, the stuff with Donald Trump. I mean, they constantly lie to us about Donald Trump. So, it's constant. And now you're in a place, a very dangerous place if you're the United States government, because nobody believes anything that you say. Nobody. Like, at all. It's a really sad place to be in. We have complete distrust for one another. The left wing doesn't trust the right wing at all. And then we can't even trust our own government. There's not even a middleman. There's not even a person who's like, all right, guys, I'm not going to be left wing. I'm not going to be partisan at all. I'm not going to be on the left. I'm not going to be on the right. I'm just going to tell you the honest truth. And I'm going to do what's best for the country. There's nobody even like that. We don't even have that. We just have two sides that don't trust each other at all. One side blindly trusts everything that the government tells them to do, even inject things into their body. And one side doesn't trust the government whatsoever at all. It's a sad place to be in, and it can be very dangerous as well.
You have no interest in commenting on that. We kind of have an idea what happened with John F. Kennedy's assassination. Are we not going to find that till 2000 and whatever the year is that Pfizer put on a thing that we cannot investigate this? So the average person sitting there saying, honestly, you guys are so cocky. Doctors are very cocky. I know a lot of competitive people. I'm in a pretty competitive environment. Football players are cocky, competitive. Everybody thinks they're better. Basketball. I got to tell you, the doctor world, oh my gosh, you guys are cocky. Holy moly, everybody is so competitive. So what happens when you guys are so competitive, the doctor world that I'm around and I talk to experts like yourself, everybody is so damn worried about being right. And God forbid if you're wrong once, that you stick to your ego of what is right, what is your right, rather than shit, you may have been wrong once. And these doctors are afraid to freaking debate each other because you're a doctor. You have to keep this facade of how smart you are. Not saying you, I'm talking about as most of those doctors. So who gets the hit? The average day-to-day person.
The bottom line is, listen, I'm not afraid.
Yeah.
It's obvious many people are. It's obvious that many people never spoke up. It's really obvious the media is afraid. The media is a big problem, a huge problem.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they are. The media is a huge problem, but so are the doctors that are conforming. And I mean, can you fully blame the doctors that are conforming? The people who I blame are the people who are at the top, right? The people who control the narrative. People like, I don't know, Neil deGrasse Tyson and those sorts of people, Fauci, obviously. But the doctors who are kind of on their way up, right? Like they're just getting a little bit of notoriety, or maybe they don't have any notoriety at all. Can you really blame them for falling in line and not losing their job and all of their credibility? Right? Like, I don't think it's their fault. Obviously, like you're probably going to be in the comments like, no, it is their fault. They should sacrifice their whole career, let their family go hungry. Don't have a house anymore for their family to stay in. They should go homeless. Okay, you're an idiot. But I think it's the people at the top who do control the narrative, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Fauci, those sorts of people who are going on podcasts and saying that anybody who disagrees with us is completely wrong, should be shunned from the doctor community, right? Has no credibility at all. And people did lose their jobs. A ton of people, I know people who lost their jobs who were doctors, nurses, people in the medical field, because they didn't agree with, what was being said, the narrative that was being spread. And they turned out to be right. They turned out to be correct. The ones that lost all credibility, lost their jobs, all that stuff, they turned out to be correct. But I think the real problem, the media, of course the media is a problem, right? But nobody believes anything the media says anymore either. So who really cares about what MSNBC says? Nobody cares anymore at all. What people do care about is what their doctor tells them. And if their doctors are having to fall in line with stuff that they don't really fully believe is true, but they know that if they don't fall in line and they don't spread this narrative, they don't give these people these treatments that the mainstream people are telling them to give them, or else you lose credibility, they go homeless. Of course, they're going to fall in line. So that's the real problem. MSNBC is not giving medical care to anyone. The doctors are. And so that's a huge problem when the doctors are forced to fall in line or go homeless or lose their jobs, right? That's the real problem, in my opinion.
Now, who in the media wouldn't be interested in an update on how to treat COVID-19? People in the media, thousands of local TV stations. Why wouldn't they be interested in giving an update? Let's have a doctor on and let's go over what you should do when you get COVID. Have you ever seen that? Even once? Think about the oblivion. It didn't come into the producers' minds once to go over an action plan when senior citizens get COVID? Not once. Think about that. That is profound. That is profound. It didn't come up once in a single press briefing for 2 years with the White House Task Force 1, White House Task Force 2, President 1, President 2, Vice President 1, Vice President 2, CNN, Fox,
Yeah, because, dude, they don't care about the health of America. They only care about doing the bidding of the government and the people who tell them what to say and then getting ratings. That's all they care about. So they're just going to talk about the same things over and over again that get them ratings. And they're going to keep spreading the same propaganda that their leaders tell them to spread. Let me know in the comments still what you guys think about Patrick Bet-David cooking this guy and really educating him on why nobody's trusting and what the real issue is. The real issue is the people who are giving treatment have been captured. And that's a massive problem. A massive problem. And we should make sure that that never happens again. Never, ever happens again. Donald Trump needs to do that, hopefully, in his 4 years as president. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this whole Patrick Bet-David really educating this doctor here for the woke take that he had here live on the PBD podcast and the Valuetainment YouTube channel.